The city of Minneapolis is bracing for a possible fourth straight night of violent protests. Outrage has echoed there and around the country since the death on Monday of George Floyd at the hands of police. President Trump threatened to send in the National Guard if necessary to bring Minneapolis under control. The white police officer who knelt on Floyd's neck as he gasped for breath was arrested today and charged with murder and manslaughter. Yamiche Alcindor begins our coverage.
A night full of nationwide protests amid a pandemic. From New York City to Columbus, Ohio, and Los Angeles. For the third straight day, throngs of people took to the streets, outraged by the death of George Floyd. On Monday, Minneapolis police arrested Floyd, who was black. While detaining him, a white police officer pinned him to the ground by his neck. Floyd could be heard saying, "I can't breathe."
I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my neck.
By the time an ambulance arrived, Floyd had no pulse. The 4 officers have been fired. And today, the officer who had his knee in Floyd's neck, Derek Chauvin, was arrested 4 days after Floyd's death. The Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman spoke this afternoon.
He has been charged with third-degree murder. We are in the process of continuing to review the evidence. There may be subsequent charges later. We entrust our police officers to use certain amounts of force to do their job, to protect us. They commit a criminal act if they use this force unreasonably.
Soon after, Floyd's family issued a statement. They said the arrest was a, quote, overdue step on the road to justice, but they added that the charges should be revised. They said, quote, "We want a first-degree murder charge, and we want to see other officers arrested. We call on authorities to revise the charges to reflect the true culpability of this officer." Last night on the streets of Minneapolis, there were chants of Floyd's dying words. Fury turned to scenes of chaos. National Guard troops were deployed to confront hundreds of protesters who flooded the streets. Some of the demonstrations turned violent. Looters smashed windows and rifled through stores. A police station was even torched after officers evacuated it during the chaos. Flames could still be seen rising above the building as a mass of people gathered in the street. Watching from Washington, President Trump took to Twitter, calling the protesters, quote, thugs. He threatened military intervention, writing, quote, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts." Twitter hid the tweet, saying it violated its rules, and then added a warning saying it glorified violence. The president blasted the social media company, and the White House's official Twitter account reposted President Trump's initial words. This afternoon, President Trump weighed in again.
I've asked that the Department of Justice expedite the federal investigation into his death and do it immediately, do it as quickly as absolutely possible. It's a local situation, but we're also making it into a federal situation, and it's a terrible thing. We all saw what we saw.
In Minneapolis, upheaval continued into the morning when Minnesota State Patrol arrested a CNN reporter on the scene.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir?
Omar Jimenez, who is black, was put in handcuffs after he identified himself as a journalist. He was later released. Buildings set afire last night still smoldered today. Daylight revealed the wreckage.
So many other friends, brothers, sisters, mothers,
Minnesota
fathers,
Governor Tim Walz acknowledged the protesters' frustration, but called for peace.
And now, generations of pain is manifesting itself in front of the world, and the world is watching. We have to restore order to our society before we can start addressing the issues.
Meanwhile, last night in Louisville, Kentucky, hundreds gathered in front of City Hall to protest a separate killing of a black person by police. In March, officers shot and killed emergency technician Breonna Taylor in her home. Some of the demonstrations turned violent. At least 7 people were shot. Many say the protests gripping the nation come from a deep pain borne by the African-American community as a result of widespread injustices.
Like it's a heavy
Cheryl
moment
Eiffel
for
is the
people,
president of the
many people who are not
NAACP
African-American
Legal Defense
as well.
Fund.
But obviously for us, the COVID-19 pandemic and what our community has suffered, when you see that number, 100,000 dead, and how many of them are African-Americans, and when you see the years and years and decades of police violence against unarmed African-Americans, and the ways in which the justice system has failed us and the ways in which our lives have been diminished in this country, yes, it is powerful and heavy.
Today, former President Barack Obama also weighed in. In a statement, he said, quote, "It falls on all of us to work together to create a new normal in which the legacy of bigotry and unequal treatment no longer infects our institutions or our hearts." Back in Minnesota, the mayor of Minneapolis announced a curfew starting at 8 p.m. tonight. There and around the country, more protests are expected. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Yami Shalsendor.
Late this afternoon, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Republican Lindsey Graham, announced that his committee will hold a hearing as soon as possible on police use of force in the wake of Floyd's death. Let's go back to the Twin Cities now and to our special correspondent there, Fred DeSam Lazaro. Fred has called that area home for 4 decades, and today he has been out in the Midway neighborhood. It's a place where there were protests, civil disobedience, and looting last night. I spoke with him just a short time ago. Hello, Fred DeSam Lazaro. So tell us about this Midway neighborhood of St. Paul where you've been reporting today. Tell us what you're seeing there.
At the moment, we're seeing a lull and a lot of cleanup duty. This is a neighborhood that's just east of the Minneapolis line, and in a community, a larger community that has really fretted the inequality between its white and non-white citizens. This is supposed to be a shining example of urban revitalization. There's a brand spanking new professional soccer stadium just in front of me. There are major department stores and grocery store chain stores here, all considered a vote of confidence in the vitality of this neighborhood. But more than anything else, there are hundreds of small businesses, most of them minority and immigrant owned, and at least 200 of them, by the latest tally, in St. Paul alone, were damaged or total losses from last night's carnage. We visited this morning with Chun Park, an immigrant from Korea who owns a hip-hop clothing store. As he surveyed the damage this morning, we also caught him shooing away a looter who was rummaging through it. And here's what he had to say.
This business started about 20 plus years ago. I take over 13 years ago. If possible, I wanted to do again because I see so many nice customers, so nice neighbors. So if possible, I wanted to reopen and live together with them. Sorry about that.
Well, you could see how affected he was, Fred. And you were telling us the business owners, many of them expressed anger and frustration that their businesses were not protected last night.
Indeed, another criticism of police in general is that where they were present, they were protecting the assets of large companies like Target, and that certainly happened here. The police had a cordon around it, and it sustained no damage from yesterday. 200 businesses, including the one that's right behind me, a sporting goods store, were total losses. So that is a criticism indeed.
So, Fred, as some of these people were cleaning up, they told you that they actually thought some of the looting was necessary. Explain that.
Well, I don't know if they said it was necessary, but rather understandable. There's a great deal of sympathy that one hears for the pent-up frustration that has built, especially in minority communities, about relations with the police. And so there's sort of a reconciliation that this had to happen, although not everybody likes the way that it turned out, but they keep insisting that this is not representative of the larger protest that has happened in this community. I talked to Peter Olafaso, who's a basketball coach and school counselor, this morning as he was volunteering.
I was around here yesterday, and a friend of mine owns a shop around the corner. So I was seeing all the devastation, and I just felt this was the best way that I can help. I mean, it's unfortunate seeing everything like this, but I feel it's something that had to happen. In a sense, people are frustrated. They feel voiceless. So, and I think initially, the protest, there's about 95% that are doing it for the right reasons. And there's 5% that took the opportunity and, looted some stores.
So, Fred, overall, how would you say people there are processing what's happened, the arrest today of one of the police officers and the heightened police presence?
There is a real hope here, a palpable hope, that will help de-escalate tension. And just in case Minneapolis has declared a curfew starting 8 p.m. tonight, we'll see how this all turns out.
Fred DeSam Lazaro reporting for us from St. Paul, Minnesota. Fred, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Judy.
We want to thank our colleagues at Minnesota Public Radio for their help in our reporting today.